Well, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Tad Bradley from the Kusini collection, along with my colleagues Vanessa and Gretchen. And welcome to the first Coffee with Kusini webinar series. We're going to kick it off today with our friend and colleague Jascivan Carvalho, the CEO of Tropic, down in Ecuador. And Jossie's been part of our Kusini family for well over a decade now. And we thought he's the perfect guy to really give the first Coffee with Kusini webinar because, of course, he always sticks to his time limit. So today we have a 30-minute conversation about the incredible May I Introduce You program that Tropic has pioneered and has been operating in Ecuador for nearly 30 years, but now has moved as well into their operations in Peru and now Chile. So Joss, we're going to hand it over to you to kick off this very first Coffee with Cassini. We're glad to have you here. Thanks for being the first.
Gracias, Tad. I'm honored to be the first. Thank you very much. Since we are no longer allowed to say Happy New Year, well, it's great to be here, and it's already February, and it feels like more or less April. It's been crazy busy. The year started rush, and we couldn't be more grateful for our partners that are supporting our product and our destinations and moving forward. So as I'm very used to go beyond, way beyond the time that I'm given by Kusini on these webinars, I'm gonna get things going by saying that I'm very excited about this year because we are organizing our work less by countries and more by ecosystems, and we have a beautiful campaign and presentations coming along nicely with lots of mountains, rainforests, and oceans and Patagonias that are becoming the way we're gonna build our expertise. So stay tuned to that. Alongside to the rebranding of our famous Guardians program into the Tropic Field Collective. So stay tuned for that, guys. I wanted to take advantage of everyone listening to us to introduce a couple of news and updates. We're celebrating the Nat Geo cover that we were very happy to have a few months ago here in Ecuador, and organizing the trip from the journalists was fantastic, as well as the great surprise that our friends Chagras, part of our May I Introduce You program, ended up becoming one of the photos of the year for 2025, which is pretty cool. Our team was doing the weekend on the opening of the new Casa Santa Clara. It's a new boutique hotel in the old town of Quito. We've been giving consultancy to the owners of this beautiful house restored in the center of Quito, and now is officially open as a new boutique hotel that is part of our collection of beautiful small properties in this wonderful part of Ecuador. And also the Chasqui Hub in Quito that was launched recently or relaunched. And I know that some of you had some interesting technical problems, and we're fixing those, but we're betting on technology, even though we are not the most technological people. And we are hoping to have a state-of-the-art agent hub for all of you to have access to the recordings of these nice webinars, as well as lots of other contents. Another campaign that we're working on is our Tropic Carbon and Calculator that we're going to be introducing to you. Last year, Tropic became carbon neutral within our offices operations in Ecuador, Peru, and Chile. And we put together now a carbon calculator for our clients' trips. And we're very excited to be launching soon the campaign with the news, how things work, certificates for clients, neutralizing their carbon footprint, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm very, very excited about that. But as Tad said, this webinar is about people, and every journey begins with its people, especially for us at Tropic. And people starts at home. So I wanted to briefly mention a couple of new faces that will be popping up on your screens and calls and fam trips. Hopefully, we're looking forward to host you guys down here. We just announced that Cristina Serrano, our Chris rockstar, was just promoted as country manager for Ecuador, as well as she's overseeing our regional sales team. Patti Calero, Patricia, is our sales manager, taking over the position from Chris. Grace Diaz is just became our business development executive down in Peru. Maybe they're around here on this call today. And Francisca, who I do see on the screen, is also here. Francisca Nostrosa is leading our sales team in Chile, but is also taking some responsibilities along my side with the business development. We just spoke about that a few days ago that I was briefly in Santiago saying hi to the team and talking to Fran about this initiative. So going into the thematic, Tad, Vanessa, Gretchen, thank you for hosting us. I'm very excited to be on this cafecito with Kusini. And the May I Introduce You is a program that began actually 30 years ago because Tropic was always about the local people and experiencing the destinations where we operate through the eyes of the local people. We began in the Amazon with the Waurani, then we moved to the Sequoia, and then we started working in the Galapagos. And it was always with the intention to bring the real Ecuadorians, the real Quiteños, the real rainforest people and cultures, the Galapagueños, the Andean folks that are now part of this huge network of artisans. And I guess the most emblematic character is Carmita. I bet that everybody has experienced a cooking class with Carmita, especially Ted and I, that are usually doing the most boring activities because of our cooking skills. I think Ted got a little bit better. I'm still the worst on that, but Carmina is a fantastic, lovely, fun-loving person, as well as all of the people that we work with. And I think talking about Carmita is the fine example of what we're trying to accomplish with this program is connecting with the local people that will be sharing their lifestyle, their cultures, their passion for whatever they do. Either is a cooking class, it's a weaving workshop, is introducing their artwork, it's showing us a micro distillery going on. So I'm going to be showing all of the stuff that we're working on, but I think talking about Carmita exemplifies the long-term relationships that we have developed. I remember when my mom actually introduced me to Carmita when she was around Suleta, and then I said, "Hey, Jassy, I think you should meet this lady." And I went there, and she did this beautiful meal with us, and we said, maybe we could do some cooking class with you. What about bringing some foreigners and visitors to your home?" And Carmita said, "Yeah, whatever." So we began, and I think it's more than 10 years nowadays that we've been doing that. Now Carmita has this industrial cuisine ready for our clients. She built a small hostel where all of our guides and drivers stay in that area. So she became this big entrepreneur in the region. And our intention is to facilitate that, to develop these businesses around our own business, and trying to guide these entrepreneurs to naturally showcase their lifestyle. So nowadays, we have this extensive network of experiences and ambassadors of our cultures in each of the countries. As obviously you would expect, it started off in Ecuador. And now we used to say, right, that there was, the network of artisans across Ecuador. And now it became a lot bigger than that. So we are trying to put them together in different thematics. So people into art, craft, and identity will be looking for experiences that will match their clients' interest in an authentic, respectful experience like this. So obviously the inspiration began with Carmita, but also with Andrango. And Tad and I went to see Miguel during COVID actually, and we're a bit scared of being close to Miguel because we could, pass on whatever bugs that Tad will be bringing from where he lives. And but it was wonderful to meet him. And nowadays, Andran Miguel is no longer with us. He passed away a few years ago, but we're still working with this wonderful family who host our clients to show, this skill of one of the last families doing this still the weaving in the traditional way. So we're doing these hands-on workshops with the family. We have another very famous one with Alfonso Toaquisa that gave us a very good reason to go to Quilotoa, which is not an easy place to get, right? Is a long drive all the way up to this huge crater in the center of the Andes. But now, not only being able to see this wonderful crater and hike around it, but on the way out, being able to do this painting workshop that obviously I am really bad at, but then Alfonso will fix it, and then you will be able to put on your wall in your home with his support. And it's just another experience that enables the possibility to showcase the art of these people, but also give a reason for these wonderful people to remain in their location, sharing the beauty of what they do. And Cuenca is a very special city for the folks that came along and joined remote a few years ago. We certainly did a fam trip that went across the avenues of the avenue of the volcanoes all the way down to Cuenca, and then we stayed several days in Cuenca enjoying the art that this city breeds. You know, there is art in every corner. It's a small, beautiful colonial center, but surrounded with little valleys and villages where wonderful people like Santiago, Maria, and Flavio are doing their silver work, or the famous straw hats that are made in Ecuador, the Panama hats that are actually made in Ecuador. And obviously, and seeing the weaving work that Santiago does, it's incredible. And then we have our beloved Sara. Sara is actually my neighbor. She's a Quiteña. So we tend to say that May Introduce You was more focused on rural adventures and people living outside the cities. So we decided to make it simple and just put it all together, because the idea in the end of the day is to showcase art and ambassadors. And I think Sara is a wonderful ambassador for the Quiteño culture and art scene. So being able to visit her home, she'll be happily open her private art gallery. And for the ones who are brave enough, give it a go into her workshop to do some clay sculpture. It's a fantastic adventure. Obviously, food became a big thing, especially since we learned that Peru is the food scene in South America. So now we are really being pushed to step up here in Ecuador, and we do have wonderful cooking classes and foodie experiences. I think the most popular one, and I know that Chris loves this one, and doing yambay and his cooking experience in Quito, making your ceviche and your potato soup. That is a classic here in the Andes. It is a fantastic way. This is, it's probably one of the most popular experiences for our clients coming to Quito, along with Yumbos. Who doesn't love the Yumbo brownie? I certainly do. Every time that I go, I try to buy everything that is on the shelf and bring back home and give away to clients. And I think one of our British clients said once, Jassy, that is the most amazing brownie I've ever eaten. So that's a pretty cool memory for their client. So here at Jumbo, we do chocolate tastings. We began many years ago doing chocolate tastings. Chocolate in Ecuador is a big deal, as everybody knows. I don't dare to say it's the best chocolate in the world, since I went to Belgium once and did that mistake, and I was expelled from the country. But since then, I learned my lesson, and we do have one of the best cacao in the world that we're happy to export and facilitate for all of the chocolatiers in the world to make the best chocolate wherever they are with Ecuadorian cacao, which is a better way to present it. Well, our beautiful Carmita, it's a photo that I promised that I was always going to keep in our presentations, honoring our dear friend Barbara, but also honoring one of the first cooking classes that we ever did. This is probably Ted 9 years ago, so it's a long time, and this was already very popular back then. It was part of our lodge to lodge or hacienda to hacienda trekking adventures in Otavalo. So there you go, Carmita, who I already introduced. And then we have new people popping up, new families willing to share their traditions. We have the Sanchez families here who have the Kukabi tradition and the ancestral flavors of Imbabura. And I think the nice thing here is the Pamba Mesa is what is a custom here in the Andes, as well as Ecuador in Peru, that families will share everything on a table, and you just go and try the different delicacies that are coming from the farm. Claudia, who is a wonderful. This is a show. It's not only a cooking. I think the cooking aspect is the least one. The dancing and the music, when the husband and the friends and the uncles and the cousins and the kids, and then suddenly you have like 50 people popping up inside the home, and we end up having a big fiesta. And then exploring her little garden is also a beautiful part of the Kausaimi cooking class, becoming one of very popular one. This is more in the side of Otavalo. Carmita is more on the side of Suleta. And obviously conservation is very important for us. And then we have interesting characters that are popping up. Rafael, a very famous now National Geographic character, since he became part of the article of the Nat Geo story that was written. Rafael is our partner who I'm very proud to have facilitated for him to create his business. He's the only Chagra or cowboy of the Andes doing horseback riding inside the national park, and is definitely one of the most popular experiences coming from Chilcabamba, our beautiful lodge in Cotopaxi. And this guy, the relationship has developed over the years. These guys from the Andes, these are tough people who live in a very rough environment. But little by little, he understood what the deal is in terms of sharing with clients, providing the safety that is required to do a horse riding in this remote area, but at the same time, being able to inspire people by the lifestyle of the Chagras, as well as how they live in this very unique and fragile ecosystem that is the high Andes. Um, then Galapagos. Galapagos. This is a fun part of the presentation, Tal, because Galapagos is not only about blue-footed boobies and giant tortoises. I promise you. There is people there. And when we began working and doing land-based trips in the Galapagos, I keep struggling telling these ages because I feel older and older. But yeah, 15 to 20 years ago, when we started doing land-based trips in the Galapagos, we felt the opportunity to showcase and highlight the people who live in the islands, right? And I promise you, until today, there's people that are surprised. Oh, there's people living here in these islands? Yes, the Galapagos live in the islands. There are 4 islands with people. And it's a spoiler here because I should say this on the Floriana slide, but you should go into Netflix and watch Eden or Eden, a less Hollywood type movie that showcases the story of Floriana Island. And the story of Floriana Island basically expresses, well, that is a wild story, but the people living in the Galapagos, they have adapted to the ecosystem as well as the wildlife, right? And then these fine people like Jorge started creating this beautiful wooden work from trees that fall from the highlands. There are highlands in the islands, and there are lots of trees. And this guy is making this wonderful, wonderful woodwork, and we're taking clients to give it a go and try and buy some of the handicraft that this beautiful artist is making. Then I have my dear friend Polo, who I am very proud to visit him every time that I go to the Galapagos and spend time on something that we betted a while back into a conservation initiative that back then was just a tented camp on this pasture land. And since then, that's probably now, Chris, I don't know, 10 years ago or more, we've been partnering with Polo, who had a dream to create this beautiful painting of giant tortoises roaming around the property freely. And then he envisioned that he was going to take away all of the invasive species and he was going to reintroduce the escalesia trees who were endemic from the area. And then he imagined that the giant tortoises will be living on a completely restored habitat. And then he thought, oh, and probably that will bring and attract some of the birds that we no longer see in this part of the Galapagos. Well, all of that already happened. So I really encourage you to come and visit the Galapagos Magic, that where I was very lucky to spend my holidays a few weeks ago, and the place is packed with giant tortoises. That picture up there is a real photo taken 4 weeks ago. So trust me, it's working. The project is working. Paulo is very proud of it, and we are very lucky to have him as a friend. And this is our modern Eden characters, Floriana, Claudio, and Maria de Lourdes. These guys, I really love them. And this is a nice photo of Silvia, Claudia, Maria de Lourdes, who, created this beautiful beachfront casitas, wooden casitas called Floriana Lava Lodge. But the luxury of Floriana, which is very basic, very remote, and is to feel inspired by the residents who actually live out of the land and are so happy to share a nice barbecue and show their lifestyle with us and really welcome you as part of the family. So they are very dear to us, they live very close to our hearts, and we hope that we can continue bringing Floriana into the lives of our clients wanting a more authentic, adventurous Galapagos experience. And I do recommend for you to check out that film that is actually very funny and goes along nicely with Claudio's story. The versions are a little bit different, Tad. So it's interesting to go and see the movie and then come to Floriana and see the other side of the coin. And we have other characters now popping up. Obviously, beer is a thing that the Kusini family loves, and we obviously have to have a microbrewery experience in the Galapagos as well. So we should come and meet Marcelo and Selene, who are doing a wonderful IPA in the highlands of Santa Cruz Island. Or for the ones who love something a little bit more strong, you could try, some moonshine in the highlands of Santa Cruz as well. I certainly like that. And we actually found another family doing rum, so it's getting better and better. The drinking scene in the Galapagos. Obviously, responsibly. We don't drive anyway in the Galapagos. We have wonderful people that drive us around, so it's cool to give it a go. Unless you are doing a mountain bike ride going down to Garrapatero, then I would encourage just to take it easy and have a little lager. And then moving to Peru, obviously, is no longer only about Ecuador. Hopefully, I'm doing good with time, Tad. We decided to begin with conservation because really, for us, I, I fell in love with the high Andes of Peru. And even though we have a small lodge here in the Andes of Ecuador, and we have climbed and explored many different trails across the Ecuadorian Andes, the truth is that when I met the local people from Chilca and Josefina around Ausangate with Tad as well, Tad, you continue popping up in my stories and trips. It was a really amazing 4-day adventure hiking around Apu Ausangate, or the sacred mountain of Ausangate, sharing with these very unique people who are trying to live out of tourism because the llama and the alpaca business is actually no longer that profitable, and they do want to stay around these remote areas south of Cusco, and having the opportunity to spend some time understanding the vision that these people have and the lifestyle of the high Andes, as well as having these wonderful views in a very comfortable setting. I would encourage you to do this lodge to lodge trekking with us. Is a nice way to have a may introduce you to the real Andes. And if you don't have enough time or don't feel adventurous enough, you could go and visit Misminay, which is in Chinchero, from Cusco down to the Sacred Valley, being able to meet Flora, Beto, and Ologio in Misminay and do some of these authentic, fun, hands-on experiences like doing my hot sauce. That's what I dig into when I go to Misminay. But you can do your little ceremony, and I actually think is a nice way to begin your Peru adventure, going driving from Cusco down to Misminay and doing your Pachamama ceremony, and then you're actually allowed to go into the Sacred Valley of the Incas and starting having your Inca adventure until you get to the famous Citadel of Machu Picchu. And from the Andes, obviously, there is a lot of art in not only in Lima, there in Cusco. We're exploring some hands-on experiences with Mara salt and weaving, and obviously there's a lot of weaving around the Andes of Peru. Or then you can find also the luthiers, which we also have around Cuenca. You can see these guys producing their charangos and flutes and all of these handmade guitars, which for some people I think is interesting, and who doesn't like an Andean music. It reminds me of Troy, a good friend of ours who are neighbor of Tad, who we constantly share El Condor Pasa music in different thematics whenever we go across one. That's our thing, Tad, with Troy. You can ask him that. So our WhatsApp is packed with versions of El Condor Pasa. And then coming into Lima, a vibrant city, big, modern, cool city to explore and hang out, especially in the more bohemian neighborhoods like Barranco. You can meet people like Christy here, who will be sharing how, all of these amazing techniques, ancient techniques coming from the Andes become contemporary design in the city of Lima. I think that's the beauty, how these limeños or limeñas are bringing the traditions into life in a modern presentation, which is amazing. I don't want to get too corny here, but yeah, food in Peru is a big deal. And obviously, we are going to have right and left ceviche cooking classes and tastings and of all flavors and sizes. But there are some interesting stories like Celedonia, or Mama Celedonia, as we call her. She's, this is an actually very powerful story where she's been producing unique dishes, obviously, right? But the deal is that she's very involved in the social assistance, providing job opportunities to single mothers and coming from less privileged communities. And we believe that is, a very moving story. And we do encourage you to pop up and experience especially have the opportunity to spend some time with her. We believe it's truly fantastic. And then we have our potato guy, Manuel, very famous guy. Actually, I should be more respectful because he's a little bit of a celebrity. He hangs out with the top chefs in Peru, providing his oca wine and potato vodka. That for the ones who know me, know that I completely failed at doing my own vodka here in Ecuador during COVID, but that was a passion project, so please don't blame me. But yeah, it was terrible, the attempt. I still have the distillery, but I don't do any potato vodka anymore. And but Manuel is really keen on his potatoes. He's a natural, but at the same time, he's a scientist, and he's a guy who's been trying to showcase how complete a meal can be out of his zillion potato studies and finding all of the different species of potatoes around the Andes of Peru. Having the opportunity to connect with him and have an experience, but especially learn from his intention to create this super papa. I think it's a very very unique experience and for anyone. So we're bumping from the Andes down to Lima. We're in Lima again now, and obviously there is coffee and chocolate experience in Lima. Yes, there is some nice cacao in Peru as well, and they are doing some fine chocolate as well. And who doesn't love chocolate? And Amanda is super fun. I did a cooking class with I actually is our photo there. Yeah, I see myself and Alegria and Tiago. We did a very fun chocolate tasting with Amanda, and walking on a walking tour in Barranco. There are all of these different shops, and I think it's a really cool way to explore the neighborhood by popping up in this boutique type places and learn from these passionate entrepreneurs their skills. Then you're getting more, more off the beaten path, let's say, with Marlene and Diego here doing the Tipons living and in traditions, which is, we call here guaguas de pan in Ecuador. I have no idea how to explain these guys, but the idea is that you can make these little figures out of the bread material. And I have to learn how to tell this story better for sure. But this is very traditional here in Ecuador, and you can actually give it a go down in Peru. In the southern valley of Cusco. And then going to the beach, you have now a new experience, which is, being able around Paracas, for the ones doing an adventure, a desert adventure in Huacachina and enjoying the Islas Ballestas and seeing all of the Nazca lines, being able to have some hands-on experience as well around, the marine life and fishermen and farmers of scallops in this case. I think is a really, really cool experience that you can add on. And
Yeah.
last but not least, Francisca, I guess you'll be very happy to see now Chile, which is a land of contrast, right? I'm so excited about Chile, Fran, because desert, wine, and valleys, and Patagonia drives me crazy. I really enjoy hanging out with people like Maria, Maribel, Inez. Chileans are very proud of their culture and they love telling their stories, and they are very sensitive culture. And that's what I've learned the most about my adventures around Chile. And they're so open and friendly. Some people say they're more European, they're more close. Yes, they are more sophisticated. They are probably more developed than most of the Latin American countries, but they are very sensitive as well as all of the Latinos, and they love sharing their stories. So being able to go from weaving experiences from Atacama down to Patagonia with these señoras, I think is fantastic. And the last thing that I learned is the lapis lazuli is the stone of Chile, right? And having an opportunity to see who doesn't like to see a semi-precious stone in the making of jewelry? Well, there you go. Lapis lazuli is the stone of Chile. I had no idea about this, but I think it's always fun to have an experience like this, and I think adds flavor to learn where this stone is coming from and how important it is for the Chilenos. I think it becomes a fun, hands-on experience when you are cruising around Santiago. Obviously, food. The food scene in Santiago is fantastic. I always I think I always like to share that the material, the raw material of the food experiences in Chile is probably the best that I have experienced in South America. You probably have some stuff that is more off the beaten path here in Ecuador. You definitely have the top restaurants and famous cuisine in Peru, but in terms of quality, I think the Chileans have no forgiven to ask to any of the other countries, and we have some cool experiences with Jennifer and Patricio here, or Christian, bringing all of this fresh marine food from the ocean, and definitely wine, right? It doesn't need a lot of introduction. I only brought one out of the zillion wine experience that you can have in around Santiago, and we decided to bring the one that we feel it's more may introduce you, right? Which is the IU Wines Cooperative, which is a high altitude wine in Atacama. I guess the Central Valley wines don't need a lot of introduction, but we do have a sommelier in our team. Francisca knows everything about wine, so you feel free to ask her about any of her favorite wines and experiences. I guess Gretchen will be very excited to talk to her about all of your wine experiences. I definitely love my wine, but I have no idea about the techniques around it, just like drinking. And then obviously the conservation and the living communities in this wonderful country. There is so much in the south, and obviously listening to the team talk about the Mapuche stories and the resistance of this indigenous group that are fighting really hard, like the Waurani once did, to protect their culture, their heritage. I think it's a really interesting experience for the ones who are willing to go outside of Puerto Varas, and being able to hang out with the Capillan family, and and see and learn, from their traditions how they live and their lifestyle. But I think it's more about the ancestral cosmovision that I think is always interesting from the perspective of the indigenous communities in any part of uh, our region in South America. And that, believe it or not, 51 slides, we went across all of the main introducers that I brought. I didn't bring all of them because I felt we might go a little bit overboard with the details. Obviously, we don't expect any of you to remember all of the names of these wonderful families, communities, and people that are part of our family and lives as a company. But we are very proud of seeing this network of ambassadors of our cultures growing. And it's wonderful to see that, each time the teams are, I met these people and I think they would be cool to share. And then we definitely will go into these areas. And it's not only about showing up with your clients, right, to connect with them. There is a process beforehand. We have nowadays product specialists in Chile and Peru, in Ecuador, and they are the ones going first into these areas, speaking to the local communities, explaining what we expect to happen, and listening to their stories. Obviously, most of them are very welcoming, but the reality is that not everybody knows exactly what to expect when, clients from any part of the world will arrive. So there are definitely some codes of conduct that we have to go over, what you should do. Obviously, our clients have to and are constantly briefed by our guides on what our clients shouldn't do when they're in these places. So creating the scene, creating the story, creating the storytelling, and creating the experience, it's part of what we do, and we are humbly very good at that. And I do expect that can continue bringing these different experiences to you guys during these years and the next years to come. So thank you very much, Tad. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. Muchas gracias. Thank you. And let
Well,
me
we
open.
we knew it was a bit of a risk to have you be our first 30-minute coffee with Kusini Jassi, but 37 minutes, not too bad. Well done to cover three countries and all of those incredible cultural and conservation and culinary experiences. I'm impressed. For those of you that do want to stick to your time, you're free to leave now because you have gone past your 30 minutes. But Jassi, I was hoping you could go back to that very first slide, or not the very first slide, but the slide you shared with Carmita toward the beginning. that I was going to
Yep.
try to screenshot and highlight. But I think that that slide, if you could share it again, really encapsulates what sets Tropic apart in terms of creating these kind of experiences, introducing people and cultures and communities and artisans. And just talk a little bit more about those 4 points that you had on that screen, about making sure that you're empowering and working with communities, not commoditizing people. That's exactly the one. And just because this really touches on what makes this program and these experiences special and what really sets Tropic apart as a luxury DMC in the Andes. So, do you mind just giving us a bit more on those 4 points, and then we'll wrap it up. And any questions, as Jossie said, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll get to them next.
Yeah. Yeah, more than happy to, Ted. Thank you for giving me more times. Now I feel very honored. It's I think it goes back to the way we started working in the 90s, right? The idea hasn't been just to create products to sell, right? I don't think Tropic is about that. Whenever we feel like we want to share a story, and we believe that Tropic is all about storytelling, but we might facilitate the story through our guardians program, our guides program, but the reality is the stories are with the people that we support. But if we show up every once in a while, Tad, it's starting from scratch always, right? So for these experiences, like the one that I'm very proud of with Carmita was, connecting first, trying things out, speaking to her about, what the deal was, what the clients would be expecting, the risk, on a cooking class, there are the risks of food poisoning. Our clients have their stomach a little weaker than ours here in the mountains, so going over the basics of creative experience, but in the end of the day is making a promise, right? And in the end of the day, we are there saying, listening, we bring a lot of people to South America, and I believe that they would love to meet you. But then you create expectations, right? So having, Chris leading the sales team and our commercial people committed to, okay, let's create the relationship, but let's then promote it, right? Because if we don't deliver, then you create all of these expectations that end up in sour feelings towards, the relationships with us as a company. You know, Once upon a time, I used to have a foundation, and we used to channel a lot of funds from NGOs into local communities doing tourism initiatives. But unfortunately, the biggest problem with NGOs in general is that they want to help. Obviously, they're there for the right reasons, but they don't understand this business. So you end up creating all of these expectations in remote indigenous communities, and then nobody shows up, and then everybody hates tourism, right? So the long-term commitment is very important. Obviously, the fair compensation, right? Nowadays, prices is a thing that we discuss on a daily basis. Margins are becoming, more complex. The pressure that we have with so many competitors now trying to do the stuff that we do, we are not compromising the most important thing, which is giving the fair compensation that these communities deserve. But I guess the most important two things is, it's not telling Carmita what to do. It's just pointing her on the direction where the clients would expect things to do, because it's usually awkward. She's doing one thing, but not necessarily that will facilitate the connection with the passenger. So we listen, Camina, maybe we can create this moment where Tad cuts the ají and Jassy peels the potatoes, and then it becomes something interesting, and then you have a laugh, and then you open a beer, and the ones who don't want to cook can have their beer. So you create the conditions, but the experience is created by the local. This their story, right? So if you're gonna go there and force it, you're gonna create a circus, and then it's the beginning of the end, right? Then the positive impact is gone, right? You're basically trying to do something just for your own business, which is something that we are not gonna do ever, and especially because the cultural aspect and how fast-paced, crazy this world is going towards with the digitalization of our lifestyles. The loss of culture that we are seeing since the 90s with the Waorani in the Amazon is something that is very, very scary. So we feel that we are protecting and honoring the cultures, and hopefully from weavers in remote areas of the Andes of Peru to artists here in Quito, showing them that people care about those crafts. We do care. It's not all about fake photos on Instagram. There is the real people, there is the real life, and it's people who are passionate about something, no matter what it is. And we want to protect that, and we want to support those kind of experiences. So yeah, Tad, that's what we taught in the 90s with the Waorani, and we moved on to different areas and different conditions to work. But in the end of the day, the essence is the same. Either it is a crazy eco lodge developed in the middle of nowhere, honoring a culture, or what it feels like a simple cooking class in the old town of Quito, but it's all about the people behind it and their stories and their efforts.
Thanks, Jossie. This was an incredible insight into what's on offer with this May I Introduce You program. And also, really, I'm going to borrow one of your phrases, which is using tourism as a tool for conservation, in this case, conserving culture, but also place. And that's a great segue to our next coffee with Kusini, which is on March 10th, same time, 10 a.m. Pacific. We're going to be unveiling the new underwater room 2.0 at the Manta property on Pemba Island.
Nice.
And the underwater room is, again, really a using tourism for a tool for conservation, conserving the marine ecosystem of Pemba, as well as the culture of the communities around the lodge. So tune in months' time for our next Coffee with Kusini, which has a very similar theme, again, around conservation and tourism, but this time all about the marine underwater environment. Jossie, thanks again. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, all, and we'll see you in a month.
Muchas
Cheers.
gracias, amigos. Un abrazo. Chao, chao.